In this episode, we will talk about how Ash Ketchum becoming the Pokemon World Champion is actually a negative character development. Hello everyone and welcome to Visual Storytelling with Olschi. I'm Olschi and on this channel we'll talk about manga, comics and anything art related. In this episode we are talking about character arcs. Character arcs show the progress of a character over time. And while we already talked about general character design in another video, in this video we'll take a closer look at how a character's change can happen within your story. The basic character arc looks like this. You have your character at the beginning of the story, with their flaws, their strengths, their wants and needs. I would recommend to watch my character design video as it goes more into fundamentals, if some of these words sound too vague for you. And then you have the character at the end of the story. They've changed and learned things. This interacts closely with your story structure. And if you want to learn more about story structures, I have a video on that topic as well. But character arc is more of a closer look to one part of your story. And while story structure gives you a guideline on how your story will develop as a whole, the character arc looks closer at some characters and tries to define how and why the characters end up where they are at the end of the story. This might sound simple, but writing a believable character change isn't always easy. Let's say your protagonist believes certain fairy people to be evil in the beginning. And by the end of the story you want them to have changed their mind and maybe now they even work together with the fairy people. This is where the story plot comes into action. You have to write certain scenes that explain this character development. You can't just say they realized they were wrong and then they changed their mind. You have to think what exactly has challenged your protagonist's point of view. What information did they come upon and how? What people did they meet? In what parts did the change come from their outside world and what came from within? You have to think about why they believed that the fairy people were evil in the first place and what it means for the protagonist to find out that they were wrong all this time. Why might it be a challenge for them to admit that they were wrong? This is just one example, and as you can see we already can ask a lot of questions. And we need to answer at least some of these questions in the story. So let's see how we can use character arcs for developing our characters. First, let's talk about the different kinds of character arcs. Positive character arc. This is what we often refer to as character development. Your character experiences a positive change. They grow throughout the story. This is also where the character's wants and needs will play a role. The character might pursue a wrong goal, then learn the truth and end up becoming a better, more wise person. The character doesn't need to be a bad person in the beginning per se, but they will need certain weaknesses or character flaws that are in conflict with the world surrounding them or maybe within themselves. By the end of the character arc, they become the best version of themselves. This is why sometimes it's really difficult to write good sequels or second season after season 1 has been a pretty good rap. Because the character already learned a lesson, and letting them learn the next lesson can look quite forced sometimes. John Truby names some common arcs in his book The Anatomy of Story. Those can be used as a basis for your characters. 1. Child to adult, or coming of age story. This is where a character has to grow up, change their beliefs, and take new moral action. An example would be Spirited Away. But I would say that most shoujo and shonen manga and anime are of this category. 2. Adult to leader. Here a character who is only concerned about themselves has to realize their responsibility and lead others in a meaningful way. An example for this would be Naruto, I guess. 3. Cynic to participant. Here we usually have a protagonist who only relies on themselves. They have to learn how to work with others and through this process find happiness in community. This is pretty much every grumpy character who is being pestered by a more optimistic, cheerful character. 4. Leader to visionary. The character has to realize that the way they have been leading others was wrong or insufficient. They need to find a way to improve society as a whole. An example of this would be King T'Challa in Black Panther. The character often has to overcome a lie that they have been believing in order to see the truth. This lie can take many different shapes and forms. It can be a lie about the world, for example, the fairy people are evil, or it can be an intrinsic lie. For example, if the character believes they need to be the best Pokemon trainer in the world in order to be happy. Yes, Ash, I'm talking about you. Do you really think becoming the best will make you happy? Do you? What are you gonna do when you reach the goal? Retire? At the ripe age of 11? And that is why Ash Ketchum is not an example for a positive character arc. Because what makes a character arc a positive one is that the character manages to see the lie for what it is and what they actually need to reach their goal, or see what they actually need altogether. They have to change themselves and maybe the world around them for the better. A negative character arc is when a character becomes worse, or where they believe the lie. This is your typical villain origin story, I guess. It leaves the reader frustrated in a way, as your character keeps learning the wrong lessons. With a negative character arc, you have a character who acts out of, negative beliefs. And even if there might be hope in between, in the end the character decides there is no point in being a good person. Or maybe they decide that means justify the ends. So they believe they are doing good, no matter if anyone gets hurt in the process. Or maybe their want is so strong they completely ignore what they actually need. Maybe they act out of fear, and in order to make sure what they fear never occurs, they make decisions that drive them towards being a worse person. An example would be a character going from poor to rich. But that alone wouldn't make it a negative character arc. A negative character arc if the character had to go through corruption in order to reach their goal. What kind of bad behavior did they get rewarded for, which in exchange strengthens their beliefs that their actions are okay. When writing a negative character arc, there can be some points where the character could have made a different decision, when there was a chance for redemption basically, but they still chose to take the dark path. This is what it makes it a tragedy in a way. But a negative character arc can also be where the character is constantly a victim of their circumstances and their choices were kind of taken from them. So they literally have no choice but to be a bad person. Either way, a negative character arc is often a tragedy or a wild ride, depending on the vibes of your story. In John Truby's Anatomy story, there are two examples. One is Leader to Tyrant. The character starts by helping a few people to find the right path, but ends up forcing others to follow this path. An example for this would be Light Yagami from Death Note. And the second example he gives is Metamorphosis. This is an extreme change and doesn't have to be a positive or a negative one. The character pretty much becomes a different thing. You often find this in science fiction or horror stories. Many of Junji Ito's characters go through this change. Here the change itself is not what matters, but rather what it represents. And the last character arc is a static or a flat character arc. I guess you could say that flat character arc is where there is no character arc at all. It's where your character doesn't change, obviously. But it doesn't mean that they will not be tested. Only here the character knows from the start what the truth is, and they stick to it. They stick to what they believe to be the right thing, and usually change the world while doing so. This applies to many episodic stories, for example, detective stories. In many cases, character with a flat character arc went through their character development before the story even started. Sometimes authors show through flashbacks what events made the character the way they are, so we can understand them better. So those are the three types, but how do you approach writing them? John Truby says, character change doesn't happen at the end of the story. It happens at the beginning. More precisely, it is made possible at the beginning by how you set it up. This means you can't just have your character go through the story unchanged and then suddenly make them a totally different person when the climax of the story is happening. The change has to start happening pretty early on. In Another Me, my manga, the story happens to Ilso, my protagonist. One day a strange man appears at her house and she gets dragged into a conflict that is way bigger than her. She has to decide what her role is gonna be in the conflict. Other stories like Blue Period, for example, start with the protagonist making a big decision and then starting their journey towards reaching their goal. Long format stories, of course, allow more room for change. The character development arc can go up and down and round again. You can even have multiple arcs. The shorter the story, the less room for change. So you usually have to pick certain aspects. Having too many things change or having a massive growth or downfall will be risky and might make the changes look sudden and inorganic, forced in a way. Also, it's beneficial if the change is more than just on the surface level. For example, if your character is poor by the beginning of the story and becomes rich by the end of it. If they have not undergone any change in their beliefs or character, the story can be quite superficial. So it's important that change happens to the character's point of view and their beliefs as well, not just to their status from poor to rich. Even though the character change starts at the beginning of your story, planning the arc might be easier if you start at the end. Figure out where you want your character to be, then decide who they are in the beginning, and then use the end as a guideline whenever you are lost in your story. The revelation in the beginning of the story, basically where the change starts happening, has to be a strong one and have a great emotional effect on the reader. This is especially great in manga, a visual medium, where you can use strong images to show the extent of the revelation. In Another Me, for example, I used a double spread to show that something important is happening. Once you have the revelation, you can map out some key scenes where the character experiences some changes or challenges. Some key scenes can be a slap in the face, they can be very on the nose. Here it's very obvious what is happening. We see that our character learned something or makes a decision. Some of the change has to happen in a more subtle way, without being spelled out. For example, let's say our protagonist had to work with a fairy person for a while now. They have been treating them with suspicion. Then there was a hard battle where they had to have each other's back. After they have won the battle somehow and treat their wounds, the fairy person gives them a sip of their drink. And our protagonist, who has never accepted anything from the fairy person so far, takes the bottle and drinks quietly. Then they give back the bottle and say a quiet thank you. In this scene, you don't need to spell out that some of the barriers our protagonist had got broken. The reader is smart enough to realize that on some level those two are closer now. Also, respect to the fairy person who had to deal with our protagonist's bullshit so far. If you have built up the change effectively and believably, then there is nothing that can stop you to show the character in their full glory in the climax of the story, the final battle or conflict. Just generally showing that they were able to get where they are through their actions and everything that happened to them in the process. This way the ending will be much more satisfactory. Before we finish this video, there is one question I want to ask. Do you really need a character arc? Not necessarily. You can start a story with the basic idea of who your characters are and then through developing your story discover who they need to become or how the events in the story affect them. And as we have seen with the flat story arc, sometimes your character do not need to change at all, and it is their personality that changes the world. Those stories can be great too. In general, I think story arcs can just be a great tool for character exploration, an experiment of sorts. You don't have to put your character in a box, but you also have to make sure that your character's actions and decisions make sense. In Another Me, my character Iso has certain character traits and then I just see how she interacts with the world. I know what she will be doing by the end of the story, but how she gets there is pretty open. This way I have more flexibility with the story. In Bad Dog and Good Boy, which is a much shorter story, I knew from the beginning where I wanted the characters to be at the end of it. And then I constructed the book in a way where this development makes sense. I'm not gonna say what those changes are, you will have to go and read the manga for yourself to know what I'm talking about once the book is out. And again, sorry to my non-German speaking viewers, as this manga will be available only in Germany for now. But you can read Another Me in English for free, the link is in the description box. The downside of character arcs is that it sometimes makes you look at your character in a very individualistic way. It's one person saving the day. Most stories could profit by having an array of characters who affect the plot, not just one important character. So you have to pay attention to how the characters develop together as well, not just on an individualistic level. It is more difficult than developing one single character arc. So maybe starting with a simpler plot is a good idea and then you can move on to more complex stories once you have more experience. I hope this video was somewhat helpful, and as usual it's up to you what information you want to use and where you prefer to stick to your gut. Feel free to write your personal favorite character developments in manga, anime or any other media that you like. Thank you again for 1000 subscribers. There is still a giveaway going on in this channel, so you can participate until end of February 2023. And there is another giveaway going on over at my Instagram channel. All the links will be in the description box, as well as links to my other social media. If you like this video, please press the like button. And feel free to subscribe to my channel if you don't want to miss out on any future videos. And a special thank you goes out to my coffee donors. It's crazy how you keep supporting me every month. Your donations help me keep this channel going and I really appreciate your help. Thank you very much. Thank you all for watching this video and I hope to see you in the next one. Bye!